Hello, welcome to another episode of StadiumCast. My name is Martijn. You may also know me as Inadequance.
And I am Amanda, also known to the community as Lundberger. And we have someone very special on the podcast this week. I would say also very timely from this as well. He was just the winner of the Barcelona special event. We have Zzweilous on the cast. Zzweilous, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Zzweilous, can you give us a little bit an introduction of yourself? My first question actually is, why the name Zzweilous? Is that your favorite Pokemon?
That is actually not that deep. Like, first of all, my name is Cedric, if we don't want to call me by my IGN. But you can call me by my IGN. Like, Zzweilous is fine, ZZ is fine. I'm a 29-year-old Pokemon Go PvP player from Germany. And Germany is like half the hint of why I picked Zzweilous as originally just my Twitch name. Originally, my Pokemon Go name was Typ mit Handy, which is German for guy with a smartphone.
I remember that.
But
I remember
that was
you.
That was like a 2016 thing when I had no idea what this would grow into. And then I discovered Twitch during the pandemic, and I also discovered PvP basically during the pandemic. I don't know what the exact timeline was for that. And because Zzweilous was one of the first Pokemon I really enjoyed using, and it also had the Zwei, like the Zwei, just a German number in it. I thought, like, if you're a German and you just double the Z at the top of the name, then it's like a very subtle pun. And because I was not really creative with my naming otherwise, I just went with Zzweilous, and it kind of became its own thing afterwards.
You know what's really funny about that is so even just last weekend in Barcelona, the whole production crew is German. And a lot of them don't necessarily know about Pokemon, or if they do, they have the Pokemon in the German names. And finally, one of them asked me, they're like, "What does Zzweilous mean?" We're trying to think he's either making a pun off of like, and they named like three different things, which it could be. And finally, I looked at him, and I was like, "It's the name of a Pokemon." And they're like, "Oh."
Yeah, like Zzweilous is actually Duodino in German. So it actually has nothing like the duo, of course, it also refers to the two heads, but it sounds nothing like the English name, even though the English name borrows from a German word.
Why do you not play the game in German? Maybe a silly question, but I'm just wondering since you have the game in your language as well.
Yeah. I've been playing the game in German for like 3 or 4 years, I think, like during my more casual days when there was not much to do. But I think after you start discovering PvP, you also need to like look up a lot of information on sites, like on resources like PvPo, where you just get the English names fed to you. So it's really difficult to find like really amazing, helpful PvP content in German. Like even my brother, who is maybe even like his English has really improved, and I would say he doesn't really have trouble holding a conversation. But like he's a German who isn't as into languages as I am, and still he does his content creation entirely in English because that's just the target audience. So we've basically all agreed that PvP is mostly played in English. I think there's also a very large Spanish community, but other than that, like the national communities are somewhat fringe in terms of like using their own language.
That makes sense. So you said that you got into PvP back when the pandemic was going on. So that was probably roughly 2020, let's say. How would you compare your skills then versus, obviously, I mean, you just won an event, your skills nowadays, but what is the comparison? How did you get good?
Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about my humble beginnings basically. Because like I've always been playing Pokemon Go on the side. Like I've had the game installed since the early days, 2016. But like my raid numbers are in shambles. I basically never raided. And I was just, I'm catching Pokemon on my way to work. I'm like somewhat shiny hunting, but not really. Like I didn't have the craziest stats. And the first thing that really got me hooked was PvP, which basically my brother discovered before me. And I think like around the end of season 1, like I missed the entire preseason, but that's kind of when I got into the Go Battle League. And I just powered up the Pokemon that I thought looked cool and got somewhat to like somewhere near the CP threshold. Like I still have like a shiny Luxray from before the community day even. I still have like a shiny Kantomag. And those have like nowhere near the PvP IVs you want, but they just go to like those are Ultra League Pokemon too. Like I thought, like if there's a future for this, it will probably be Ultra League, right? Because nobody can raid so much that they can have Master League Pokemon. The Great League Pokemon are so small. So I was really confident that Ultra League is where it's at in the future. And yeah, then I just started watching a lot of content, stepping through my battles every day. I think one thing that really helped me becoming better is like two things. One thing that actually has to do with my skills, which is that back in the day we had fast move denial. And fast move denial was a mechanic that I think was proven to be affecting European battlers more than North American battlers. So you could not throw on alignment and like just expect to not give away a fast move to your opponent. So I basically had to learn fast move timing early on, and I saw that back in the day when I used my Hypno, which was one of my early Great League Pokemon, sometimes I won against opposing Skarmories, and sometimes I lost, and it depended on when I threw my charge moves. So that was like an intuitive way of finding out about move timing before people made videos about move timing. I still think it's the most important skill to differentiate like an average or below average battler from a good battler. And because it's so easy to learn, I encourage everybody who's starting out to do so. Um, and the other thing that helped me improve was really just changing my hardware, because I was PvPing on, I think like an iPhone 7, like something really old, something that you wouldn't find like, at any tournament, at anything really. And I had like my game crashing, I had my game lagging, and I kind of had to overcome those obstacles to even reach legend. And once I upgraded to a phone that was actually somewhat respectable, um, yeah, it was like taking off the weights a little. So I didn't become like immediately amazing, but it definitely helped to play on hard mode for a while.
How do you feel about what's it called again? Fast move denial being mostly fixed.
Oh yeah, mostly is a point. Like I do think the classic fast move denial is fixed. What we now have is just like basically inconsistent one-turn lag. Um, but I do think it really leveled the playing field. It also like put a spotlight on some regions that were underappreciated back when we had fast move denial. Like now we know that, like especially Amanda knows that the Indian battlers are real powerhouses, and it's not all about the Europeans or the North Americans. So
Oh, I've
yeah,
heard of this region.
I
APAC?
do think
What?
I do think that was really like the best PvP thing Niantic has done to fix fast move denial and bring a little bit more consistency to the game.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, that's obviously true. And for those who maybe don't know or don't remember, I made some outrageous claims and I didn't call Asian Pacific teams in a final of a SILF tournament, and they just ended up really, really proving me wrong. And Europe was unfortunately the first teams out of that tournament.
It's true.
But let's go on. We talked a little bit about your beginning. Let's talk about last season of Play Pokemon, because you also had like a pretty stellar run in that league as well. And you had some unique off meta picks, such as you did this season Can you walk us through a little bit of how you did in 2023?
Yes. Because that was quite a roller coaster ride. My very first play Pokemon tournament was actually basically the season before, because I did participate in the last chance qualifier, and that kind of motivated me to try my luck some more. And the actual first official regional tournament I participated in was this last January in Liverpool. I brought a team that had some meta picks, like I did have Lickitung, I did have G-Fisk, I did have Altaria, which was part of the hard meta back in the day. But it also had a Tapu Fini, shoutouts to Enhoff, and it also had shout out to Obatas, an Ampharos. Not even a Shadow Ampharos, though. Many people talk about this Liverpool run as, oh, Zzweilous brought a Shadow Ampharos. Was the regular Ampharos. I still don't have a great Shadow Ampharos for Great League to this day. Yeah, that went well because a lot of people were discovering Shadow Charizard around this time. That was actually the breakout tournament for Shadow Charizard, and after the fact, Human Catcherbug basically said, like, was the winner of that tournament with his Shadow Charizard. Basically said that he was very happy that I got knocked out early day 2, because he did not want to face a Tapu Fini Ampharos core into his Shadow Charizard. And yeah, I basically did that, like, using Ampharos, which is not a good Pokemon in the Open Great League. I do think it's one of the best Ultra League Pokemon, don't get me wrong, especially the Shadow. I think that's like a high A tier Pokemon. But in the Open Great League, it's more of a challenge. But I remember Caleb Peng basically publicly stating that I think he would delete a Bastiodon if somebody won a regional with Ampharos. And I thought, okay, like, I get to pick 5 other Pokemon, and I'm pretty good at using bad Pokemon, so why not put Ampharos on the team and see how it goes? And it actually worked. It actually worked quite fine. I did not lose that tournament because I didn't trust in Ampharos. No. I did not lose at that tournament because I trusted Ampharos too much. I lost it because I didn't trust Ampharos. I got knocked out by a Mind Choke and Dex in day 2 after making it to day 2 on the winner's side. It was a top 16. And I think I trusted in Trevenant, which is one of the Pokemon I most despise, and got hard RPS'd when Ampharos would have been a core breaker in both decisive game 3s. So yeah, that was how that started out. And then I did run it back in Bochum, but I went too spicy there. I thought, okay, I have Ampharos, I have Fini. Let's put Shadow Zard on there too, because who needs bulk? Who needs that product? And yeah, I got basically RPS by Snorlax twice. That was a bit of a feels bad man. When I went to EUIC, I got knocked out super early because I didn't get any sleep and I forgot to count my own moves. But that happens. I still had a great time at EUIC, and I feel like that's more important, even though like competitively I felt like the Dub-Will Pelipper team that I had created for that was very viable at that point in time. I didn't get to prove that. But I bounced back a little, actually competing in Hartford in the United States to meet a lot of my friends from the international community for the first time. And also, I think I felt like 1 or 2 games short of day 2. So yeah, that was basically my tournament history last season.
So about that Ampharos, I think it actually was a really viable Pokemon, but one thing it really struggles with, or that the trainer struggles with, is which moveset do you use, right? I think at that time there was a lot of Trevenant, so Brutal Swing made sense. I think without Thunder Punch, even Noctowl was a little bit iffy at times, right? Because the Shadow Ball did so much, at least on Shadow. I used Shadow a couple times in practice tournaments, not regular. Right? And then you want Focus Blast for nuking Galarian Stunfisk, right? So I think that was one struggle that Ampharos had. If you were to use it right now, what would you run on it? It also has Trailblaze now, right?
Yes, it does have Trailblaze. Honestly, if I would use Ampharos now, I would probably, first of all, not run it in the Open Great League, because I did think that the niche it had was being an electric type that had win conditions versus both Trevenant and Galarian Stunfisk. Because if you did land a Brutal Swing, you were able to just shield and farm down a Trevenant. And if you land a Focus Blast on Galarian Stunfisk, you just one-shot that in Great League, basically. Like, that does like close to 100% of its HP. So with Earthquake nerfed and Chifisk basically out of the meta, and with Trevenant being nowhere to be seen, I do think that Ampharos kind of lost its niche. So might as well, like, I think you always want that one hard-hitting closer on it. Like, you do want a Focus Blast or even a Zap Cannon. Like, at least in Great League. But I do think that Thunder Punch might be more viable right now, just because you just double down on at least the niches that an electric type needs to fill. Like, you don't struggle as much against like the flyers you want to beat. And again, we have Gligar now, so that's a flyer you don't even want to face with Ampharos. I just don't think Ampharos is great in the Great League right now, but yeah.
I have an important question. If Caleb Pang were to say, yeah, no one could ever win a tournament with Ampharos this season, who is going to prove him wrong now? Who's going to prove him wrong now?
I feel like that's on True Butters. I feel like you are, like, Martin, you're a perfect example of someone who can juggle casting and competing. And I feel like we need more casters to do so. Because there's nothing that prevents you. Like, there's no contract clause that says, okay, you're a caster, you are not allowed to go into a tournament. Like, Caleb does the same. Like, he qualified for Worlds and he was casting.
Yeah.
And I do think that some people, like my North American friends, Speediest Chief, Tour Butters, enter a tournament, bring your signature picks, show Caleb how it's done, and we got this. We got this. Like, especially the Ampharos. Like, I know it's difficult in a Gligar meta, but it's a Pelipper meta now. So maybe there's an opening for Ampharos to shine at a regional.
Listen, I feel extremely called out. We're going to have to end this interview here, Zzweilous. It was great having you. I'm just kidding. If we wanted to run it back to your 2023, I don't know if you've done the math on it, would you have qualified for Worlds with the championship points that you got in that? And if not, would it have encouraged you to play maybe another tournament to get whatever remaining points you would need?
I do think I would not have qualified. Like, I would have probably had, I don't know, like around 300 points, potentially, maybe less. EUIC was a dud. Like, EUIC was nothing. So that was like, I would have had the opportunity to earn the most points. So yeah, I would have not been able to qualify. Maybe I would have, like, because this is weird to say that as a regional champion, or special event champion rather, but last season I thought that, okay, if I just run the hard meta everybody runs, like, other people are just better at that because they run like the Noctowl Trevenant Lantern course more often in Open Great League, like just in GBL. Like, they have more Sylph experience, so maybe they're better at calling the lines. So I thought, like, my only viable way to the top would have been to just trust really weird Pokemon nobody knows the matchups of, and basically ride that to success. So I was just always going all in on those, like, weird picks nobody else would want to bring to a tournament. Rather than going for, like, consistency and reliable placements, like around the top 8, top 16. Maybe my strategy, like my approach as to that, would change, because I did take less risks with my Barcelona team as well. So maybe that's already like an influence of the championship point system that you Like don't go too crazy if you actually think, okay, if I'm just consistently okay to good, then that might be my ticket to Worlds.
So we've talked a little bit about your team building already. How did you approach Barcelona, however? I feel like you went a little bit more meta than... You also said it in your wins interview, I believe. That you went a little bit more meta than usual, right? There was no Ampharos to be found, no Tapofini.
No reverse engineering.
A lot of reverse engineering, actually.
Oh, okay.
Because, yeah, like I just wanted... I just wanted to win. Yeah, I just wanted to win. Like,
Makes sense. Yeah.
that is more cocky than my usual self, because I had to make sure to like basically in public not to set the expectations too high, so that I can like fall back on that whenever I don't meet the expectations I may have like set for myself internally. But in our faction server, I like half jokingly, but really only half jokingly, set my server name to Barcelona Special Event Champion on like Thursday or Friday, because I felt confident after like my time going 6-0 in your practice tournament, then using the same team for the Battle Frontier battles I had that week and also winning that. So yeah, I just looked at the meta and thought, okay, what are the strongest Pokemon right now? Like especially with Pittsburgh coming in and the data from Pittsburgh coming in. Like I knew this was like the most Medilicky meta imaginable, which I like because those are like somewhat boring bulky Pokemon, but at least they're not RPS at all. I feel like we are in the healthiest play Pokemon meta to date. I think that is shown by the amount of games that aren't decided by just hard alignment. Like there's always exceptions, but that's just the nature of the game. I think overall we're in a pretty good spot. And yeah, then I basically thought, okay, what else do I need to cover for? Like Liga was very popular. I don't know whether it was all that successful. But like it was successful, but like the Dragonite, I thought more people would bring Shadow Dragonite, and I was kind of scared. But like my Powder Snow Alolan Sandslash pick was kind of to scare away the Gligas even more. That's why I was a big proponent of Registeel in the old meta. Because like I have a good Registeel, I practiced a lot of teams with it. But I don't think that in a meta where you don't even counter the most dominant flyer anymore, you necessarily want a Registeel, so I went for the Alolan Sandslash. Like of course I started out with Medilicky because that gives me a degree of flexibility. I did decide to put Dynamic Punch on my Medicham because I do think that you only really want Psychic for two matchups in particular. The one being the Medicham Mirror, which I didn't need my Medicham for because I had plans to put multiple Medicham answers on my team because I don't like losing to Medicham. And then the Azumarill, which wasn't common in Pittsburgh and might have been even less common in Barcelona.
It was actually top 6 in Pittsburgh, but yeah, it was nowhere to be found in Barcelona.
Yeah. I was very happy to see fewer Azumarills, but also like I had outs versus Azumarill that were in the Medicham. Like you don't want to be the Medicham against an Azumarill anyway, even if you have Psychic, especially now that Psychic is nerfed. So I thought, okay, we just double down on the positive matchups and basically shore up matchups like against Registeel, which my other favorites I wanted to pick were kind of weak to. Matchups against Dugong. I think I would have lost the grand finals if I couldn't have repeatedly dynamic punched a Dugong shields down. And also like the Lickitung matchup because I don't like losing the zeros to Lickitung as a fighting type. So that was basically first adjustment. The second adjustment was Powder Snow, Alone, and Sandslash. Up to that point, Shadowclaw was more dominant because it was stronger against Registeel. Like, you just straight up win the 2 shields against Registeel if you're Shadowclaw. You have win conditions versus Lantern that you don't have with the Powder Snower. But I think Powder Snow is more useful because not only do you win against Lickitung, which was on basically every team, so you turn that from a loss to a win, and you come out with a move. I played that out and practiced a lot, and I always landed an Ice Punch, landed the Drill Run, Powder Snow down, came out with the Drill Run. That was really nice, especially because many people use that as their safe swap. So that was just a really reliable way of answering one of the 2 most common Pokemon. And then I have the farm down potential on the Gligar, on the grasses, because that's another thing that Alone and Sandslash is going for it over a Registeel, which would compete for a spot on the roster otherwise. That you're not scared of those Shadow Venusaurs, of those Superiors, because you just do fast move damage, you do super effective charge move damage. It's just way more comfortable overall. And Powder Snow and Shadowclaw are like basically the same move in a vacuum anyway, because like Shadowclaw on paper does do slightly more damage, but it's non-stab, so not really on this specific Pokemon. Yeah. And yeah, then I thought, okay, I have an Alone Sandslash. What does it not want to see? Bad Boys, Swampert, Quagsires. So I doubled down on coverage versus especially Swampert. Like, Maddie and Licky are positive to neutral in that anyway, but after I put a Venusaur and a Pelipper on my team, I was pretty certain that like A-Slash only really had to fear
Medicham.
I don't know what did it even have to fear, because those are Medicham answers too, and I put a Sableye on there too. So I just really made sure that I had a lot of answers to counters for my Alone and Sandslash, because I know with its unique coverage, like back in the day, like back in the Walrein meta, we said, okay, Ice and Ground are uniquely good because nothing really resisted, and then we got Araquanid, and that turned out bad, so nothing still really resisted. And A-Slash is basically the same, but quicker and a steal type. So I thought that's like the best sweeper I could have on my team. And to make sure that I don't lose the mirror, I decided to not TM my PvP IV A-Slash from Shadowclaw to Powder Snow, but just build a 5 attack XXL Alone and Sandslash. I really enjoyed the fact
Wait,
that
it was huge?
XXL. Yeah, it was huge.
It was huge. That must have been it.
It's taller. It's taller. It's not only taller than you, Martine. It's even taller than I. Like I look
Wow.
into my game, and this is so tall. Like, if it was standing next to me, it was just slightly taller even. So yeah, it's big, and it wins CMP. So if you win CMP, you actually don't need Shadowclaw to win the 1s and the 2s. Yeah, like I was basically building around next to the core of Medicham and Medicham and Lickitung, Alolan Sandslash with Powder Snow, and a lot of things that just cover its weaknesses. Like, I added 3 Medicham answers, I added 2 Swampert answers, and I thought, okay, this will enable Sandslash to sweep many, many games, and that's exactly what happened. I think the flyer meta we have after the Sky Attack nerf is so interesting, and Pelipper is bad at doing what you want a flyer to do, because you don't really answer grass types as hard, and you don't even have the aerial ace coverage like you have on Gligar. You just beat the other flyers, so I enjoyed that a lot about it.
At the risk of making you sound cocky again, do you think that anyone could use this team that you did, or do you think that you have a specific mindset and playstyle that made this an advantage for you?
I think there's definitely a learning curve with this team, but there's a learning curve with every team. I don't think you can just plug and play every regional winning team and expect to do just as well. like you do need to basically build up some familiarity with the Pokemon you have, because sometimes there's even IV differences, and you just need to memorize the specific matchups. So I do think that it takes some amount of learning, but I do not think that's specific to the team I ran. I don't think the team is necessarily more difficult than any other team. I do think that having two shadows on it and the Sableye and the Pelipper being like not really frail, but on the squishier side for a Pokemon picks. Like you do need to be able to like want to take those risks, and there's like less risky Pokemon for the same roles. Like you could play a Superior as your grass type, you could play a Registeel as your steel type, and you would have like a few decisions less to make in terms of, oh, do I shield this now or do I just let this go because I live this? But overall, I would just encourage everybody to like, if you thought, okay, this looks fun, I want to try the same, then just go ahead and try it out. Like practice against your friends, practice against like other people in practice tournaments. There's options everywhere, and like practice makes perfect. Like that's basically how I got where I am, because I just playing way too much PvP during the pandemic and generally stop afterwards. So yeah, like just get started and see where it leads.
Good advice. Good advice. This weekend we have the Curitiba Regional in Brazil. Let's say you were to play there, that you somehow got a flight right now, right after the interview, you go to Brazil and you had to play. How do you think people would adapt to not only your performance but also Budash, right? Because we've seen Dragonites win a tournament and then it swept on day one and then unfortunately fumbled. And now the Power Snow Los Angeles from you did really well, right? How do you think people would adapt to that?
That's a very good question, actually. Yeah, that's a very good question. Because, like, Powder Snow, like, as I said, it makes the Lantern matchup less good. It makes the Registeel matchup less good. But those are already in the meta, right? I could see, like, I do think that we have a surprising lack of non-Lantern water types right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would have expected even more. Like, I did fight the Swampert in the grand finals, but I thought we would see more of those, especially because like Lantern is still around, like steel types are still around, and like Vadash won, I think, Pittsburgh with the Swampert, so I don't really know why that somewhat fell out of favor, and I do think those Mud Boys really pressured the Sandslash, whether it is Powder Snow or Shadow Claw. And other than that, I feel like it's difficult. Like you could bring like something that I didn't want to see was, for example, like Kanto Ninetales, because that was just really shuts down both the Venusaur and the Sandslash, even though I do have the drill run, but Kanto Ninetales is tanky enough to deal with that regardless. And like Medicham, Lickitung, Sableye are all just neutral matchups, and then I would be forced to bring the Pelipper, which isn't without its own risk. So like definitely like the most underrated typing in a grass steel meta would be fire. And the best fire type, Shadowzard, doesn't necessarily beat Sandslash. So maybe there's an opening for other fire types. I don't think the typing itself, like just in a vacuum, is in a very good spot. I think we could use like a move update or two for like one of the next seasonal updates, just to maybe bring some viability to that typing beyond Charizard. But yeah, I think with like my shadow Pokemon basically being the stars of the show, Having something like a Ninetales in there, or even like a Shadow Alone and Marowak, which also helps against the meta jam. It just needs to be
so much
careful to not. Yeah, you need to be careful to not line it up against the Lickitung. So maybe if you have like a bait out strategy, and get the Lickitung out, you can break the pretty popular Sandslash meta jam core with that. But yeah, those are risky picks. I think Magic Mason actually made top cut with one in Pittsburgh though, so there's precedent for it working out.
All right, fair. Now the next topic that I had for you is you already mentioned it yourself a little bit, the community aspect of the game, right? We will see each other in Toronto.
Yes, we will. We will.
And I know where you're going, but can you tell us a little bit about your trips to the US, right? I don't think you go for Hartford specifically, for example, because
Yes,
I don't know what you thought of Hartford, but it was not the most exciting city.
I am not going to. I won't vacation in Connecticut ever again. I don't think. But yeah, I think like there's always the local or the national communities. I feel like that's even stronger in the Netherlands compared to in Germany, where everything's even more spread out. And like I think I know like 3 people that play PvP are from around the same area that I'm from, but that's like being generous because that's like 1.5 hours in each every direction. So if I was only reliant on my local or national community, that would be like a very small community to interact with. And I think especially because the rise of PvP and the COVID pandemic basically coincided, a lot of people made many global friends, and especially North American friends, because we are consuming English language content, and if you're just a native English speaker, then it's easy to reach a very large, a very wide audience. And I think our friend Jim Wholesome built up a really good and really wholesome community over at his Discord server. And there's like dozens of people I want to see. Like my faction, Sharks and Recreation, is made up of people from like half a dozen nationalities. There's a bunch of Canadians in there. There's a bunch of Americans in there, and like most of those people also like basically found each other and built up their friendships in that server Wholesome created like in I think 2020. And yeah, like if you just have those online friendships, those people you know from Twitch chats, from betting against and alongside each other, from chatting on Discord, from just having a really good time, just sharing your lives and your humor on a digital platform. Like eventually, you just want to meet those people. And that's why I went to Hartford, like because Hartford, it was like the biggest North American regional up until that point. And that was not because the city was such a great destination for travel. That was just because multiple groups within the community have decided, okay, this is our big community meetup, and we just want to see people there. And everybody just flocked to this like weird location in the middle of Connecticut. And yeah, like Toronto, still very low on registrations, but I did basically promise my Canadian friends to make it there after last year's Toronto regional, and like I will have like 3 of my teammates battling in the same tournament, and I'll probably see many more friends from the community, and yeah, this is why I'm going. There's just so many people that you build a connection with, and you don't want that to be digital forever. So yeah, those in-person meetups are always a great time.
Yeah, you talked about you know, U.S. people, Canadian people. There's also a Belgian on the team that you stole from our faction.
It's true. It's true. We did steal him, and we're not giving him back.
Yeah, fine. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt, but I understand he's moved on to greener pastures.
Who is
He's
it?
down with a special event champion. Poke games.
Oh
Yes,
yeah, of
yes.
course. Yeah.
He will compete in Lille, and I'm excited for that because if Gaines
amazing.
really sets his mind to something and learns the counts and learns the matchups, then he's really difficult to take down.
I want him to be up against Lorenzo.
Yes, yes,
Lily
yes.
Girls, because then it's just like we want the two like buffest dudes in our community.
This is,
just
I think that's the perfect representation of the average Pokemon Go player, right? So yeah, we need that to happen.
I 100% agree there. Yeah. No, but I agree, right? It's the community aspect that, especially during like the pandemic that you build up there, and now with the tournaments that play Pokemon has been building up, you have an opportunity to meet them, right? Because it gives people incentive to go to those tournaments. So yeah, I think we have like 50 people or 50 competitors registered right now for Toronto, which is
get those up.
yeah, it's definitely not a lot right now. Not what I expected. I expected that. Right, Toronto is a pretty reachable city as far as I know. It has an airport, like I don't think Peoria or something does, but maybe it does. My American airport knowledge is not that big, but yeah, no, that's a good point. And yeah, I met a lot of the wholesome people last year too in Hartford. Maybe many of them will be in Toronto again or New Orleans at the NAIC. Now that you've won the special event, that is my final topic for you. Now that you won the special event in Barcelona, you basically are auto qualified for Hawaii. Will we see you there?
I cannot promise it yet, just because I don't know the exact dates and whether it would collide with my work schedule. I'll definitely try to make it work, and it would be right now I'm just qualified for Worlds. I'm not a Worlds competitor yet. You need to compete in Worlds to be that. I would assume.
Can you tell that to Tho next time we talk about
that? Yes, definitely. I really I'm here for the Joe redemption arc though. I think he's been having a lot of fun with the game recently again, and I love to see that. Especially because his stream is also a place where the community comes together and also new people find accessible content to get into the game and become part of this community. So yeah, I'm really happy to have him back, but he shouldn't chicken out of Worlds again.
I agree. Yeah, I tried. I really tried to get him to Japan, but hopefully Hawaii. Even though I think that if you don't go, yeah, I mean, Worlds is something else, right? Yeah, Amanda, should we lead to our final staple question, or do you have anything else you wanted to ask?
No, I think that. Well, I know I do have one question first, and we had this topic a while back when we interviewed you in Bochum, I believe.
Oh, is it the question?
Yeah, about your. Yes. So for those who don't know, which I mean, I think everyone knows at this point, your brother is Jonkus, who is like a pretty famous YouTube PvP content creator. And I asked both of you at one point who you guys thought was the better battler, because he's also competed in some tournaments and placed pretty high. At this stage, now being the world's qualified person that you are, who do you think is the better battler between the two of you?
I genuinely still think it's a tie. I don't I could use this moment to bask in my glory and just gloat about what I've been achieving. But he's been I know that he has other things going on, with university, with his content creation business. If we were to focus on competing, I easily believe that he could make a run like that, because he almost made a run like that in Utrecht already, and it was very similar. Both of us were okay, he got knocked to the losers bracket really early, but we were up against one of the best Spanish battlers, and it basically just came down to one call in one match. And that's at the end of the day, it's a coin flip. And he's been so supportive through all of this journey. And if we were to focus on competing, I would still think that he has it in him to do the same, honestly.
Sure. All right, cop out answer. We'll move on to. Okay, so I think that you probably have listened to a couple episodes, but I'll give you a refresher. Who in this community do you think is a brawler, and this is someone who is maybe undervalued or underrated in PvP, but you think that they are incredibly good. And then who do you think is a champion? And this is someone who has qualified for Worlds or has competed in Worlds maybe last year, and you're like, yes, they probably will take it this year.
I knew that was coming, and I like the question. Can I give two brawlers?
I suppose.
Because it's divided by regions, by continents. I could basically list off like almost everyone on my faction, but I want to leave it at the one that I think the fewest people know, which is Dale Army, who is an English battler who I think my first interaction with Dale was like probably like a year and a half ago or like almost 2 years ago, and we just scrimmed, and I was so impressed with the quickness of his reflexes, with his decision making, and just with his overall mechanical gameplay, like the way he actually manages to put you on the back foot. And nobody knew who he was back then. Like he's been playing as a Master League specialist for us, but he's been like dipping his toes into Great League metas as of recent as well, and he's been doing phenomenally well. And I do think that he's someone who, if he made it to a tournament, would definitely be someone to look out for, because he's very methodical about studying his matchups. Sometimes studying the wrong matchups, like, oh, I'm studying the Excalibur matchups when they have a Metagross on their team. Oh, I didn't know that Landorus Therian was a flyer. But whenever he knows what he's up against, like he's nearly unbeatable, and I do think that he can definitely go toe to toe with the best of the game. And for someone from the States, from someone from North America, it would be Nighttime Clasher, because I'm at Nighttime Clasher at the Bochum Regionals, where he actually helped out as a caster, and I was already like admiring the dedication of flying all the way from the US to Germany just to basically gain that experience as a Pokemon caster. And he also like told me back in the day, like, oh, I just started out competing. Like I did fairly well. I like using spicier Pokemon. Then he had all his Togedemaru runs, and now I think he's on like 3 consecutive top cuts. And you rarely see it that somebody who hasn't been a well-known name around the community for years breaks into that into that fold of the very best consistently. And I think Nighttime Clasher has been doing that, and I'm very confident that if he keeps up his commitment, he will make it to Worlds this year. So yeah, those would be my pro brawlers. And when I'm a champion, I'm not saying my time. So just so we can get that out of the way. But it's difficult because like there's 2 obvious answers. I feel like the 2 obvious answers are it's Zaxxon and Badash, because they have the most accolades, and if we are talking about like the GOAT of Pokemon PvP, then it's probably between those 2. But if I just talk about previous Worlds competitors, I really enjoyed watching Statistan. Like I don't know whether he'll be taking it all the way, but I feel like he's such a unique character. Like the way he builds his teams, the way he executes his plays, the way he carries himself in interviews. I feel like that's someone I want to see more of this season, especially now that the influx of Lickitung probably makes his signature Mew pick a little bit worse. And I'm really curious to see whether he goes to more regionals this season and can maybe adapt to the new meta, because like this very open meta is something that really should benefit people who thought out of the box previously. Someone who ran like Dunsparce Mew Core definitely did that. So I'm excited to see what he has in store for this season.
I'm sure that Statistan, the man with the plan, will come with something good. I mean, he played the 2022 Worlds as well when there was a Lickitung meta, I believe. He'll be fine. True. We'll see him in Lille, actually, I think. So, yeah, we'll see what he brings there. Zzweilous, thank you for your time, for being here. That was a productive conversation. I knew after the Barcelona interviews that you have a lot going on in your mind, and thank you for sharing on.
That's one way of saying that I did a lot of monologuing over last
No.
But that's good. I think that's good, right? Because one of the things that I do like with this podcast is putting our guests in the spotlight, right? So I think it's good.
Yeah, we appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much. And we will see you again next week. Thank you.
Bye.